Good afternoon. I'm Sean from Mountains Garage. Today we're going to rebuild an old Hurst shifter that I got as a gift. There was a time in this country, somewhere between when the dinosaurs escaped their pen and we shot down the alien spacecraft over Roswell, where you had to shift your transmission yourself. There was no such thing as distracted driving. It takes all your limbs to drive a manual transmission. And then, after we discovered technology from outer space, now we have nothing but automatic transmissions and lots of tinfoil. So, go figure. This is a Hurst super shifter that I pieced together. The shifter's brand new. The bracket is used, and the rods and arms I also found online. I ended up with a couple $100 in it. Sells for about twice that. The super shifter was marketed, it was a Competition Plus shifter, and they ran straight rods and a higher rear mounted bracket than the traditional Competition Plus. This is a shifter I got for free. It looked like it washed up on the beach. So off camera, I popped out the tin shield right there on the bottom and spent a couple hours picking out dirt and old hard grease, cow manure, everything else that was in there. I soaked it in my carburetor cleaner overnight. I cleaned it up, lubed it, put it back together, drilled and tapped it for stops. This shifter was probably in an OEM application. You know, who knows where it was, but Hurst provided shifters for GM, Ford, and Dodge. And the only difference between the OEM Hurst and a Competition Plus is the stops. They even pre-drilled the hole. It was 1/8 inch. You can open it up to, I went 21/64 and tapped it 3/8 24 right hand. And now it's a Competition Plus. So I'm going to take this piece of flat stock right here and that round stock, make some spacers, and I'm going to duplicate this bracket. So I have that to go by with the offset and whatnot. And with these aluminum rods and rod ends, I'm going to duplicate these, and the arms I'm going to make on the mill. And going to have a nice shifter when I'm done. For free, my handle has seen better days below the boot. This is all covered by the boot. It's probably okay. But the sky's the limit. These are, you can make your own. You can buy them any shape and dimension, length, and make it your own. But it's going to be a cool project. Let's get at it. Starting with the bracket on this piece of 1/2 inch aluminum. It's a nice round thing. I get drops from the local machine shop, so I can build stuff. And I just traced the bracket out. Transferred the holes right there. Use some transfer punches to drop down for the shifter mount. I'm going to straighten some of these lines out. I just wanted a rough shape, and I can make any shape I want. So that's pretty much it. Transfer punches, super handy for doing stuff like this when you want semi-accurate work. Again, I can move the shifter up and down, forward and back, but I'm pretty much trying to duplicate what was here. I've collected quite a few ways to cut metal. But for a project like this, believe it or not, the old cordless hacksaw, Milwaukee M18. I love my Milwaukee tools. I'm not a paid spokesman. They just work. And this isn't even the fuel version. I bought a whole truckload of this stuff cheap. Lots of batteries. 5-6 years ago. Still going. And I'm just going to put the piece of aluminum, wrap a rag around it, put it in the vise, not even going to use soft jaws, and cut it out with that. That's the most efficient method I've found. I don't use lube or anything. I just whip right through that aluminum like it's butter. It works really well. I'm halfway through sawing out my bracket with the hacksaw. Got it held in the vise with a rag. And it's about 10 degrees out today, so I decided to put the saw outside, let it cool off. I'm halfway there. I don't want to burn it up, so I let it cool off, put a fresh battery in it, and I'll do the other half. So I decided to do a little more shopping in my stock. And I found this cool 6061 aluminum. It's already got a hole in it for spacers. I need a spacer because this bracket has an 1.5 inch offset, and I'm using 1/2 inch aluminum for my plate, so I got a 1-inch spacer to end up with the shifter in the same spot. So if you happen to have a bandsaw and you're cutting pieces that are too small to hold in the vise anymore, I put the old small piece in the bottom. Now it's pushing even, it'll hang on to it. I always hang on to the handle when I'm cutting stuff that's potentially going to break the blade, and it usually works out pretty good. There's my spacers. I'll put them in the lathe, make them look nice. I typically would size them so they're both the same, but you know, that came out pretty nice for just marking it with a Sharpie. And do yourself a favor before you put that back in the rack. I usually knock all the sharp stuff off it, because next time I go looking for it in the dark or something, I'll end up bleeding. You'll notice I always wear gloves. I'll explain why in another video, maybe in the end of this one. While I'm hacksawing, I got heavy gloves. If you had vibration proof, that'd be even better. And ear protection. You've only got one body. Now through the magic of, you know, boom, look at that. You got a bracket. I'm gonna drill some holes in it, clean up the corners. That was pretty well painless. I might have spent 15 minutes doing it. I made all straight cuts. You know, we're doing odd shapes. I'm not gonna try to turn that corner with a blade inch wide, so I just go straight. That's probably gonna end up in the trash. I mean, I'm too thrifty to throw that away. Probably that one, but those will maybe go in the trash. It's tough to be a hoarder. All right, I'm over here at the drill press. It's nothing special, just a couple $100 cheapie. But the original bracket had one oval hole, so I spaced it out so I could run a 3/8 drill either side, and there's going to be a little to clean up in the middle. But it's a feature I don't need, but the original bracket had it, and why not? Now we're back in the vise, and I'm tapping the plate. The original bracket has a 3/8 course and a 7/16 course to hold the shifter to the bracket, and I'm going to be running long bolts with spacers. Originally I was going to through bolt it, but during the process of building it, it occurred to me I don't know how much clearance I have to put a nut on the back side. So in this case, if I have clearance, I'm going to run the bolt through the threads, tighten it up, and then I'll put a nut on the back side. So if I really get whaling on it, you know, it might stay in place. I've had this set of taps since I was a teenager. And the only way to, and I cut a lot of holes, cut a lot of threads, you got to put lube on it. And when you're done, you clean them up and put them back in the package. A wise person told me a long time ago that every job's the same. The work comes and goes. Your tools will always be here. You got to take care of them. And the clean work area goes a long way too. So that's my tip of the day, I guess. Moving on. Before I get carried away making the bracket pretty, I want to make sure the shifter would bolt on. It does. For the oval hole, I got really fancy and put a 3/8 bit in my hand drill and just held it sideways, and there wasn't much to clean up. So I have a mill. I could have ran an end mill through it, but I'm trying not to use too many fancy tools, so in case you want to try this at home. Okay, we're gaining. We got us the bracket with spacers, and I found some bolts that'll work. As promised, I through bolted the top one. If I have room on the tail housing, I'll probably do the same to that. Total overkill because the bracket's threaded. And, you know, if you're going to build it, you might as well build it strong. It wouldn't be that hard to figure out if that'll clear because the transmission's only sitting 10 feet from me, but we'll get to that. So we recreated this offset mounting location. There's a couple other shifters I did recently. I had nothing to go by this time. At least I have the old shifter to go by. It makes it really easy and kind of fun. I recently did these two shifters. This particular one is a long vertical gate, which is forward and back only. And it was just a shifter. I had no bracket, no rods, no arms. This was about 3 weeks ago. Nice guy, lives a few states over. Made me an offer on the, well, I didn't make him an offer because I actually wanted to pay a lot less than he was asking originally, but I showed some interest, and a few weeks later he offered it to me. I couldn't refuse, and here it is. And we have similar interests. You know, we both go to New England Dragway, and someday I'll probably run into him in person, but he's nice enough. This is what happens if you're nice to people. You don't undercut them or, you know, be that way. He went to Pennsylvania last weekend to a swap meet, and Monday morning he sends me a message that he found one complete for a little more than I paid for this one. And he bought it, brought it home to Massachusetts, and offered it to me for what he paid for it. And it's on its way in the mail, so I'm going to have another one, which is cool. I like this one. I'm going to put this in my bench seat and over, because you squeeze to put it in first or second. And third, fourth, just back and forth. It's automatic, but to get back, if they wanted to downshift to second or first, you got to squeeze the lever. Reverse, simple, in and out. These aren't idiot-proof. You could probably put it in forward and reverse at the same time. Shouldn't do that. This is a vintage Mr. Gasket. Hurst sold this same shift. I'm not sure if Hurst and Mr. Gasket were in cahoots back in the 70s, but these are what I call glory day parts, because everybody wants this shifter. You can look them on eBay. They cost a fortune. This one looked like it went down on the Titanic. So a little elbow grease again, just like the H pattern shifter we're working on today. And looking pretty good. Originally, reverse on this would have gone opposite the way I have it hooked up, so I'm going the same direction as that one, because I don't want to have to relearn my thinking every time I hop in a different car. And this one has not quite as handy, but you're reaching down from your seat, much more than I'm standing on a bench right now. You gotta lift that up for first, second, third, and fourth. Believe it or not, you saw me put stops, so I mentioned the stops I put on the H pattern shifter we're working on today. This stop package here was an add-on. They actually sold this shifter that you're gonna whale on with no stops, which is nuts, because I'll put it back in gear. Second, stop is right there. You can see that hitting. I leave a little air gap, so when you whale on it and that flexes, it's not putting the strain here on this cast piece 3/8 that sticks out of your transmission. That's where it's going to fail. You can have grade 8 bolts and all that other stuff. That's your weak link. So, third, got to stop right there. Fourth, got to stop right there. The long is very similar. Has nice stops on it as well. And without that, if you're enthusiastically banging gears, which what's the sense of having the shifter if you're not? Well, you know, you're going to break something. And let's be honest, these transmissions, these are Super T10s. I broke every Muncie I ever had. I had, excuse me, bear with me, huh? If we can even get a picture of it. That Chevelle was 3860 with me in it. 3,860 pounds with me in it. Back haft. And I wanted to be a manual transmission racer. And I broke every Muncie I could get my hands on. So a buddy of mine, and it's a sign of a true buddy when he will let you borrow his Super T10 out of his Camaro, stock, completely stock. And these are only factory rated for about 330 foot-pounds. Well, I had a 60 over 427 tunnel ram. The car ran 10s. And this thing held up all summer, and I gave it back in one piece, because I figured I might be buying him another one. And back at then, I didn't have a lot of money, so it held up. We've had good times with these. Another friend of mine, we put a scatter shield over the clutch. Got to have that. You only got 2 feet. And a good super shifter, just like that one over there. And we would all take turns power shifting, practicing. Car didn't have a rev limit or anything. To power shift, if you're not familiar, push it down to first gear. You take off, you put it through the floor, and your right foot's never coming off the carpet. I pull as hard as I can on that lever till the engine hits, the shift point. I just touch the clutch. I'm already pulling as fast as I can. It's going to go to the next one. Don't miss. That's why the shift is handy. Same thing. You hit it right for your shift point again. You're pulling it. At this point, I'm pushing on the shifter just as hard as I can. Fan the clutch. You're in another one. If you let off the gas, you must get an automatic, and so on and so forth. the phrase all in is way overused, but back when 4 speeds ruled the streets and you didn't have a rev limiter, you were all in. Because you were either going to hurt something or, you know, be a legend, I guess. Back to the project today. It's time to make the shift arms that bolt to the transmission. I made these arms out of some cheap 3/16. I think I bought it at Lowe's the other day because I looked through all my stock. I didn't have anything that was right. Really hate using Chinese steel, but I heated it up and dropped it in water, hardened it, because the factory ones, like for instance this Hurst arm right here, I had to drill this hole. That is harder than the hinges of hell. There's techniques for drilling through hard stuff. None of them are real functional. This one has a set of arms that I had from my junk drawer. So for the project today, I'm going to unbolt the Mr. Gasket shifter here. This is the transmission I'm going to dummy our project up on. And I have found in my scrap one I can use for reverse. I could use these arms, but I don't want to. I like things that are whole and complete. So this is the only bushing I'll have to have in the whole project. Hurst used these because this is where the pivot was, actually in the bushing. Where mine, I have bolts and rod ends, and that's the bolt's not moving, so the arm won't wear out there. And just to be different for the 1, 2, and 3, 4, I see a lot of them advertise their aluminum. I'm going to try making some out of aluminum. I'm going to figure out my distance between my holes right here, because the shorter that is, the shorter the throw on the shifter. So I'm going to take a swag at that. And I'm going to try making out of this. I got nothing to lose. I can make it, you know, more if they wear out. If I ever live long enough to wear it out or break it. And I see online you can buy aluminum into a steel. So this time I'm trying this. Why not? Here's another tip for you now that the shifter's unbolted off the transmission. If you didn't have a bracket to go by, take a piece of cardboard, and hold it up to your 3 mounting holes. With a ball peen hammer, you just tap, tap, tap on the hole, knock the center out, and put a bolt in. I went this way. I did this one, and then this one, and over here. And you got yourself a nice little template that's accurate. You like to do the same thing if you're going to make a gasket or whatever. You hold your piece of material up or trace it out. I prefer to hold it up and just tap around the outside. If I'm going to mask something off to paint it, I put the masking tape over the hole. Say, for instance, a hole. Just tap around the outside and peel it off, and it's custom made, fast, does a nice job. All right, I got the aluminum arms cut, marked out, and I put a couple lines to guide me in the mill. I'll make that slot. The old chip chucker here. So let's do it. Just like that. All right, I got my arms made. I got the rod ends mounted. I put the left hand on the transmission. I put the right hand rod ends on the shifter. So in case you're not familiar, this is reverse. Goes to the inside of the shifter. 1 and 2 is in the middle. Here's the shortest rod. 1 and 2. 3 and 4 are on the outside. That's 3 and 4. 3 and 4. If you're not familiar with shifters, this is your alignment pin. It's 1/4 inch. You can use a drill bit. This is an actual Hurst one. In the 70s, this was made of metal. In the 80s, it was made of plastic. Go figure. And all your shift arms are detented. So the middle's neutral, neutral, neutral. If you can spin the input and output shaft, you know you're in neutral. I put my jam nuts halfway. And then I go ahead and take a measurement, and I'm going to show you how to make the rod in a minute. On the forward, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, I've messed around with these enough to know that I need a spacer here for the rod to clear. and I reduce the head of the bolt half of what's there, especially like on the inside here. Give me some clearance. These arms are a little thicker than the steel ones I've been making, so I went ahead and threaded these. And on final assembly, I'll Loctite this and then put a small jam nut here, because if I put a full nut there, it's got that much tighter clearance, might need a bigger spacer. So if you're working on Harley Davidson's, hot rods, race cars, anything else, Loctite is your friend. In fact, no bolt should go in any threaded hole untreated, be it sealer, lube, Loctite, whatever it needs. You got to do that. All right, we got the first rod, reverse rod in the lathe. I've been experimenting. I really need a collet holder to hold this without scratching it. So I've been experimenting how tight I can tighten the jaws without leaving a mark and still be able to push in with the drill and not shove it in there and then make a gouge. I'm going to sand and polish it. I'm going to spend a half an hour making a pretty part you're never going to see under the car, because that's just the way I am. And I like to do 3 or 4 operations when I turn the lathe on, so I'm going to go ahead and chamfer it on a lube and spot drill. Gonna pop that chuck right out of there. Got a whole other chuck with my 21/64, which is my tap size for aluminum that I am comfortable with. To drill it, tap it 3/8 24, and then I'm gonna pop the drill out of this, shut the lathe off, pop the drill out, and start my tap in there using the tailstock because it's perfectly straight. I've done these rods with a handheld drill and a tap. I've done it with going up through the bottom of the plate on the drill press and drilling down into it and doing it that way. You don't need a lathe, but if you have it, why wouldn't you use it? So on the left hand end, this is going to be the right hand end. Left hand end, I'll make a scribe all the way around denoting the fact that it's left hand. I only did that because that's the way I saw them advertised and I like the looks of it. And I go ahead and put a knurl 2 inches down from the end so you can have a little, fancy twirling point. Now, isn't that a mess? I've done a whole bunch of these in the last month, and I've learned that the faster, if I can feed the drill in, I don't do a pre-hole. I go with 21/64 all the way in after my spot drill to center it. If I can keep the chip coming out, I can go all the way in. I go in until it reads 2 inches on the graduation, which is really about 1.25 inches, because this part, see the part that's shiny on there, that pops this out. So I just go by when I get to 2 inches, I'm done. Now, part of you wants to grab that while the lathe is running, rip it out of the way. Do yourself a favor, back the drill bit all the way out if you have to stop, because if I don't feed in steady and that chip comes out in one piece and makes this big rat's nest, I got to feed it in 3 or 4 times. So I just go ahead and do this. I don't touch it. And if you're going to grab any chips like that, back the tool out of the way, and then grab it. Because if that machine grabs that while your finger's in there, well, This is what I meant by starting the tap. I just put the tap in the chuck, tightened it up. I grabbed this and turned it while I was holding on to this. I started it nice and straight, and I just loosened up and backed that away. The tailstock was loose the whole time so we could pull it in. And now I go finish it in the vise. Put my tap handle on there. Run it right in there. I've already lubed it, of course, and should be nice and straight. So I have the reverse rod built, and I've run both rod ends in tight, right and left hand, just by hand. Now, I'm going to hold on to it and back it out so when I'm in final adjustment, I'm in the middle of each rod end's thread. So let's put her in. I'm just going to back it right out so the bolt hole lines up. Now what I like about this is you got, quite a bit of play, but I can adjust that so it's absolutely perfect. With the Hurst setup, you only have threads on one end. You have to rotate the entire assembly. Keep trying it on the transmission or trying it on this end, but you can get it, but this is infinite. It's really nice to be able to adjust it perfect. So 2 more rods, and we're going to be shifting gears. All right, we finished. The shift is kind of like an old shoe. I'm really impressed with the way it feels. It's going to go nice in one of my old hot rod pickups. I tired of chasing this transmission around the bench with this piece of wood, so I'm going to build a stand next, probably. But let's give it a go. First, second, third, fourth. Reverse. Neutral. It's a beautiful thing. Now the view. Plenty of clearance. Rods laid in there nice and straight. I adjusted my stops that I added, and I'm going to be happy with it. So we took an old shifter that was given up on, made something out of it. Total budget, I probably spent $100, give or take.